audio conferencing as well. So if you can bear with me for a moment, for those people who are watching via YouTube, they can also join in through Teams. So I'm going to read this off. Please click on the Join Microsoft Teams Meeting link at the bottom of the screen to join via computer or mobile device. Click on Join Now. Upon entrance to the meeting, you will be automatically muted or ensure that you are muted. You'll be asked to unmute yourself by clicking on the unmute sign when your agenda item is called. To join via phone audio conference center, the number is 1-209-645-4071 listed for the meeting. Enter the conference ID number 966-406-226, then press pound. Please clearly state your name when requested. Upon entrance to the meeting, you will be automatically muted. Again, ensure that you are muted so there is no feedback loop. You will receive confirmation that you have connected to the meeting. The clerk will confirm participation information from all attendees in the Microsoft Teams meeting. The clerk will call upon attendees either by name, initials, or the last 3 digits of your phone number, and note the purpose of calling. Please confirm whether you intend to speak in support of an agendized item, in opposition to an agendized item, or are a silent participant of the meeting. When you hear the specific agenda item referenced by the number on the agenda and/or application number, be prepared to speak when called upon. When the Planning Commission Chair calls for speakers in support of the project, the clerk will call on individuals one at a time. Please be patient as you are admitted to the speaker line. When the Planning Commission Chair calls for speakers opposed to the project, the clerk will call on individuals one at a time. Please be patient as you are admitted to the speaker line. When you hear the clerk call out the name or the last three digits of the caller's phone number, this is your opportunity to provide your public comment. The clerk will ask for those speaking in support first, and then ask for those speaking against the project second. For Teams, computer or mobile device user, unmute via the speaker icon. For phone user, press *6 again to unmute. You have the standard 5 minutes to provide your comments. Once your 5 minutes have ended, you will be moved out of the speaker line and back to listening as a participant in the meeting unless you disconnect. Please mute your computer, mobile device, and/or phone at this time. Participants who wish to speak on other items on the agenda or during other comment periods may stay on the meeting device and listen for the clerk's next prompt. Please mute your computer, mobile device, and/or phone while you are waiting. So, Chair, I also would like to repeat these instructions at 6 as we hear item number 2 particularly. We've also sent these instructions to as many constituents that we've known that have contacted us and have also provided their contact information to us so we can give them this information or these instructions. So with that, Chair, thank you for your patience, and I'll defer it back to you.
Thank you. Any action or request for pause? This time, the public is welcome to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Comments or commission, maximum 5 minutes.
Chair, we did have a participant from the Sheriff's Office. I don't see him here just yet. So if you don't mind, we can defer a little bit to the later.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Action item, consent item 1. Special purpose plan number PA 2000092, a Mountain House. Items calendar for consent will be approved in one motion without hearing unless a member of the Planning Commission or the audience requests that the item be removed from the consent calendar or separately.
So, Chair, if I may, this is the special meeting item, so that's for 6 o'clock. If we can take the development title update first, that would be great.
Sorry, John. I jumped ahead there. Okay, development title update.
Good evening, Commissioner Hamilton and Commissioners. I'd like to welcome you to the first of several meetings for the San Joaquin County Development Title Update. I'm here with our consultant, Michael Diet of Diet and Bhatia, who will be briefing you tonight on several kinds of ideas and thoughts and things that we want to try to accomplish during this development title update. We've had several meetings with major stakeholders in the community. We've also had an online survey. We've also had a community meeting, web Zoom meeting yesterday, and it went really well. And I'm kind of ecstatic right now and excited because this is kind of one of the things that planners do look forward to in their career, and welcome the opportunity to really get into and dive into the development title and try to do some great things for San Joaquin County. So I'm going to bring Michael Diet here to the diocese to present you the presentation on the title.
Chairman, members of the Commission, an honor for me to be with you tonight to share with you what we've been doing so far and what we would like to accomplish. This is an overview of the agenda, which is fairly straightforward, background material, and then get into some of the meat of what we'd like to have you endorse as the direction for the development title update. So this is the idea tonight, is to give you that sense of what the project is and hear from you on the direction that we're suggesting. We'll be taking a little bit of time explaining the recommendations and some of the specific actions that we'll take in the update, and note some other opportunities, as John mentioned, that we'll be pursuing for additional community comment and how we would like to come back to you with more details as we move forward. So we have 5 specific goals for this development title update. First, and probably most important, is to implement the general plan and look at all the policies in the general plan, particularly those that have a bearing on the development title, and then draft the regulations accordingly. We also want to make the development title consistent with federal and state law, and it hasn't been looked at for almost 30 years, so that's certainly timely that that be done. A third objective will be to bring the zoning maps into conformance with the general plan land use diagram. A lot of the zoning map designations do fit nicely with the general plan, but there are many, probably a couple 100,000 acres, where for the most part a lot of the AU20 zoning was not rezoned to match the general plan, and we'll have an atlas for you showing what that would be. And it makes sense to just do that once, and you won't then have a lot of individual property owners coming to you and saying, why isn't my zoning matching the general plan? And there may be, as we work through this process, a few what we call cleanup amendments for the general plan to make it sync with the development title. Just by way of example, the Crossroads policies say you only develop one corner. Well, a number of stakeholders said, well, why can't I do 2 corners? Well, we need a general plan amendment for that. But if the sense of the Commission is that makes sense, we carry that forward and do that minor text amendment as a companion item when this goes before the board. And most importantly, we want to streamline the permitting process. So when people come in, it's very easy to get a yes or a no at the counter. And many things are coming to the Commission, some even going all the way up to the board, that most jurisdictions would have handled at a staff level. You're all quite familiar with the development title, but for those in the community that may be watching, I think it might be good to just briefly say what are the main subjects. It's a fairly daunting part of county code. It's almost 700 pages, and we're hoping to actually drop that so it's much more manageable and not so heavy to carry around. But it opens with the regulations for zones, where are uses allowed, where are buildings allowed, how big can they be, and a lot of other details on lighting, landscaping, noise. And then it has a set of rules for subdivisions. How do you divide large parcels of land up, including that question of the home sites for the family-owned parcels? And what are the improvements that need to be in place when you do a subdivision? Infrastructure standards and financing is a third major section. and that's for water, sewer, and drainage. Need to have those in place before any development is finished. Sign regulations, both the building signs, freestanding signs, as well as the billboards are in their own separate section. Often jurisdictions put those in zoning, but they're buried at the end of the document now. And then you have a lot of other standalone divisions on flooding, quarrying, agriculture, the airport, and wineries. And I think there can be a lot of healthy consolidation. We have a straightforward process. We want to start by understanding the general plan policies, and in the appendix to your document that I think staff has shared with all of you, you'll see the general plan policies that we pulled out and how they relate to the development title. We also drove around, took pictures of recent development, spent 2 days interviewing stakeholders, talked to almost 40 people who use the code to get their insights. And we had that community meeting John mentioned. We posted a recording of the community meeting on the project website. So if you want to actually hear what people were asking us last night, or if anyone in the community wants to, they can do that. And we've got an online survey up as well, open until the end of the month. After this meeting with you and then with the board, when we're briefing them, then we'll get into the details of the actual drafting and come forward to you with parts of the code so that each of the sections will be broken up and we can have a manageable meeting and get your feedback and then go back and make the changes the same way we would handle the zoning maps. And then the environmental review occurs later in the project. Cleared off the environmental impact report of the general plan, so it probably will be a fairly straightforward exercise. And then we'll have the hearings and adoption. I have a schedule up for anyone who wants to see it, showing how hope to be done within a year. We hope to be back here with the final recommendations for the board approval next summer. And I think we can do that if we have a good, straightforward process. We found that the code has got a sound framework, but it's old. It hasn't been touched since 1992. It doesn't really reflect your current general plan policies or the law, and it just has way too many permits, a lot of cumbersome procedures, overly restrictive rules. There's a lot of duplication. It also doesn't deal with truck parking. That's increasingly an issue as you have more self-hauling and you have a vibrant farming sector, and people need to have more trucks on site to just do their business. The obligation to connect with cities for the public services is often onerous and not feasible for some developers, and there may be a way to introduce some more flexibility. We've heard, too, that the rules for the family lot splits on the large parcels are sometimes very difficult to meet and costly. And there may be a way, without opening up the agricultural zones, to just make that process a little cleaner and more responsive. And we lastly heard from one of the commissioners told John that accessory building height was important, and we'll certainly want to take a look at that. The survey that's up will ask people for their preferences based on some photographs that we have, and also ask what are their thoughts on some of the other areas of concern that I've been talking about. So we'll have a sense of what the community would like done about second units, about the Delta, farm worker housing, or agricultural tourism. And as I said, that will be open for comment until the end of the month. Here are some examples of the pictures that we'll have, and people can express their preferences. And this really helps us then write the standards and the rules and the code, because we say, oh, there's a real strong preference for having the parking on the side and the rear. Everyone liked that photo. And that's helped us draft the code amendments. The community meeting was really a good experience for all of us. It was, for many, probably the first Zoom meeting that they had undertaken, and it worked well. We had a good hour. Commissioner Migley can actually attest to whether it was a good meeting or not. But people told us they thought the project was going the right direction. They wanted to make sure we looked at the Williamson Act, that we looked at non-conforming uses, that we spent some time streamlining and simplifying the permitting process, putting in performance standards in place. They thought some of the terminology was confusing, make it more user-friendly. We were asked to look, again, as I mentioned, at the home site rules. They're not always easy to get through. And in light of COVID-19, we were asked to take a closer look at opportunities for outdoor gathering, outdoor living area in homes and in multifamily projects. And lastly, not lose sight of the need to have job generation as part of economic development. Those were the big takeaways that had. If anyone wants to listen to the full hour of the discussion, it's up on the website, the recording. So after all of this work with John and thinking about what we heard, we're suggesting to you that there's 6 big ideas we want to use to guide the drafting of the update. First is to streamline the development review and approval process. Second, make the code just easier to use and understand, and that may involve some reorganization and just a more logical arrangement of the rules. We want to support economic growth. We want to address mixed use and other development opportunities. We want to promote housing variety and choice, not just for affordable housing, but for farm worker housing, executive housing, and a lot of other aspects. And lastly, have a high level of design quality in the county. Now, I'll give you some of the details for each of these. Streamlining, for example, it makes sense to have one set of common procedures and make sure that you have the rules for what we call the little permits that are approved at the over-the-counter, the permits that come to the commission, the big permits. And there probably is a need to have less reliance on the commission for a lot of straightforward things. So we're thinking you bring many things down to a director level use permit. And that could replace the site approval process and the major improvement plan. So again, you'd have the little permit over the counters or a staff review for a use permit. The big permits, which would come to you, the controversial projects would really need you to look at. And when you want to say yes to a project, you need flexibility in the development title. I don't think we have enough of that. Many of the rules are very rigid, and there are not ways to modify them. Another aspect of that flexibility is the planned development zone, which the way it's written now, it's just for housing projects, and they have a separate set of standards for them. Why not open it up, as many jurisdictions do, for commercial and industrial? A large choice. And then you say to the applicant, show us what you really want to do. We're not going to give you a separate set of standards. Give us your best ideas, and then you, as a commission, can evaluate them. And we would actually separate the process of the planning for plan development, which you'd administer through a use permit, and that would be the commission's responsibility, from the rezoning, putting the PD on the map, and that's what the board does. The board just does the map change and then lets the commission administer the PD process, the planning itself. That's a part of that streamlining. And lastly, as I mentioned from the community meeting, let's get into non-conforming uses. Some uses are good neighbors. They've been here for a long time. No one concerned with them. Let them do a remodel. Let them do an addition. Others, hazardous materials, auto repair, whatever, you want them moved out. So let's have a tiering process, a classification in that section, and not treat them all the same way. Ease of use. You can do a lot with the uniform rules, consolidating the standards, have all the rules for uses in one place, the special uses. Simplify and get rid of unnecessary regulations, get rid of the duplication. Let's shrink this volume down use more tables and graphics, modify the zones in the zoning map as you need to really match the general plan that people put a lot of time into, and let's make it clear so it's hand in glove. I'd mentioned a lot of the AU20 rezoning needs to be done to match those general plan designations. And we may want to introduce some overlays for historic areas and other kinds of special purposes that modify the underlying zoning. Graphics, drawings can really reduce wordiness. People look at a picture, oh, I understand what you mean by that side setback or where a building can be located. And then we'll have in the tables a lot of cross-references. So in the use tables, for example, we'd add a column that would say, and you also should go to these sections for more details. So the heart of the ordinance is much more easily navigated. For economic growth, we heard that the rules are limiting the vertical integration of agriculture out in the county. And one farmer said, why do I be reclassified as a commercial use if I just want to have my packing shed used by a neighboring farmer when I'm not using it? That should be straightforward. It should be allowed. I thought that was an excellent suggestion. I'd mentioned truck parking, and I'd mentioned the different ways of handling public services that we would be doing. We've got to take a real careful look at the sign regulation. And a lot of court cases, federal case, that you need to update those and follow through. And when you actually compare your numbers, how big a sign can be, with Sacramento County, with some of the cities, you'll find that your signs are very small. It's very restrictive ordinance. So if we open it up, follow what is best practices, then I think everyone will be much happier. And it will still do the job of giving people equal opportunities to advertise their businesses. Cell towers is another one where business of trying to get broadband, maybe you've heard of the new 5G, 5th generation for the cells, they need a lot more cell towers, so it will be many more towers, a much more what we call dense network, and they, under the law now, have to be approved in 90 days. Well, the ordinance doesn't provide for that now. So we've actually worked on both signs and cell towers with staff, and we'll be able to take those amendments to you fairly early so that that can be put in place and wireless industry can respond quickly. For mixed use, corner store, it's a great thing in the neighborhoods, but the ordinance doesn't really recognize that. Your current ordinance is really into separating uses, commercial here, agriculture here, residential here. Well, the general plan talks about more mixed use, but you only have, I think, 10,000 acres in this whole county for the mixed use zone, a very, very small amount of land. We can do more with that. We can do more to support winery-related tourism and recreational opportunities in the Delta. And we can rethink the buffering and transitional requirements so you're not creating these dead spaces that pull uses back from property lines. The winery ordinance, for example, sets dimensions from a home on an adjacent lot. Well, some of these might be rethought and provide for some additional opportunities, just make it easier to do appropriate development. Another exciting idea, this project, is to have actually a set of pre-approved plans for accessory dwelling units. So there'd be a manual with 6 sets of plans that have already been approved, and they'll have the engineering and the Title 24, the structural engineering and the energy calculations all be done. So if someone likes Plan A or Plan B, they've got the permits, they just have to fill in a few details relative to their particular site. And that will all be in a new design manual for accessory dwelling units. We also think it might make sense, and we heard from some stakeholders, to allow for some executive level housing that might be clustered but in the rural areas. Why aren't there rules for that? Well, that makes sense. Let's put those in. And let's also, in areas, maybe allow for smaller lot single family, not make them go through a full PD process with homeowners associations and common areas. Make it what we call a fee simple arrangement, so they can have a smaller than standard lot if they meet the standards of the code, and that can be streamlined and again over the counter kind of process. There are 3 more ideas for housing. First, we need to update, take advantage of some of the additional provisions in state law for the affordable housing density bonus and other incentives. Sacramento continues to pass these bills. It's sometimes hard to keep up with them, but we certainly need to be there and be consistent with what they have in place. I like Zoe's nodding. And so we're committed to doing that. Similarly, we're committed to making it easier to upgrade the old mobile home parks and trailer parks, have very clear standards, so it doesn't become an onerous process, and a lot of good best practices out there that will make that work easier. And lastly, for farm workers housing, important these days to say, here are the objective standards. If you want to do farm workers housing, you meet these standards, you can get an over-the-counter permit. I think that would send a really good message to the farming community that we have a way for you to build this housing with the fewest obstacles. Lastly, expect high-quality design from all the development that comes to the county. And use the term a minute ago, objective design standards. So, not to say that something is compatible, that you like it, it's generally, that's not objective because it requires some interpretation. An objective standard would be something you can map or measure. And if the standards are clear, the approval can again be over the counter. And we put those in not only for the farm worker housing, but for the multifamily and mixed use. So it would be, there'd be drawings, there'd be tables with numbers. There's no misunderstanding about, and they're not that loose language, is something compatible with the neighborhood. Well, compatibility is in the eye of the beholder. It's not something that is clear and objective. I also think the landscaping requirements can be refined so they relate to the project type. So you have one kind of landscaping for industrial, a different requirement for the residential or the mixed use. And let's not have a one-size-fits-all. Reduce the cost, but also let's get some more shade trees in the parking lots. I drive around and I see a lot of barren lots. County staff said, well, yes, we have a tree standard, but we don't always think it's appropriate. Well, I think we can rethink that effort and have less barren landscaping in the parking lots. Have that COVID-19 idea I mentioned earlier, have more usable outdoor living area in projects. So people can go out, have a chair and a table on a balcony or have a deck near their unit. They may be working at home more. Well, let's make that living environment just much more livable. I've given you an overview. I'm now here to listen to you. I wasn't going to talk for a full hour. I wanted to have you have plenty of time to ask me questions or to tell me whether you think we've missed something or like us to research a couple of additional questions, and we can do that. So,
I got a question for you. Going back to the farm worker housing, how does that work with you're a grower and you want a housing for 30, 40 people? Not going to be necessarily dormitory. And I know you run into county permits, but once you run into housing for farm workers, you run into state nets that are overlapped on top. And I know guys that went and come down to Hazleton and talked it over. I think first blows them out of the water with the number of feet, total cost to put, and kind of address what works between local jurisdiction and state.
State has, within the past year or so, adopted some new legislation that really provides an opportunity for the counties, for the local jurisdictions, to take the lead and to set the standards that wouldn't involve that kind of state review. They're still, for some kinds of projects, there may be some state rules, and we will be getting into them more, but I was really struck by the opportunity to make this a by right, over-the-counter approval if we set up the objective standards and have some, in effect, pre-approved plans if you want to do some dormitory or community housing. Some of the work that had been done is 10 or 15 years old, and they're still thinking of that the farm worker is the young single person, which isn't the way it is today. You do have quite a different character of labor force. I see I'm in the right direction. And that's what we need to think about. It's the families, the women, and some of the early work that Davis was doing in terms of prototypes was just bunkhouses, and that's not what needs to be done today.
And I think what you can with like bunkhouse type, all male, then you have a lot of friction. I know they work it out in the Northwest, cafeteria style and dormitory style there, but they've got a lot of the age come for season. Really tough in this area. Population. Apartment house.
I think the county has 2 or 3 projects. We're going to be learning more about this, learning more about the choices, but it sounds like this is something you'd be supportive of our spending some time on.
We definitely need it. I mean, we're young generation is also go to work, or we're counting on
we're going to get into that.
their fathers to keep.
Yep.
And we appreciate that. But it's sad for me to drive around on a Sunday morning. You go by a mansion, got a single wide trailer, and there's 9 cars parked in front. That's not right.
We can do a lot more, and some things done in Napa and Sonoma, and I'm hoping to learn a lot. But we may find ourselves that San Joaquin's going to be in the forefront of this area because a number of the counties haven't done a very good job.
James, do you have any questions?
That's a really good question, and county staff anticipated that. One thing they have asked for is they applied for a state grant to be able to do the same kind of manual that we're doing for the ADUs for farm worker housing. John?
No. Yeah, there's 2 grants we applied for. It was the SB2 and the LEAP grant. And in one of those grants, I can't remember, I think it was in the LEAP, what we allowed for was some money to be set aside to do a manual for accessory dwelling units. So it would provide for the opportunity to have small ADUs, 500 square feet, where there wouldn't be a lot of development impact fees. The cost would be relatively small to the applicant when they come forward. So they come to the counter, they the manual, they'll see the floor plan, they'll see Title 24 is the electrical and all plumbing and mechanical.
That's all in this contract, but the farm workers.
Well, the farm workers, both manuals will have all that information.
Hoping to fund that.
Yeah, well, we do have the funding, but we got to get the manuals, and we're working with The architects, your esteemed wife, and she's very pleasant to work. The name of the company, Good Shoe. Yes, so they're going to put together a manual. We'll prepare that, and then actually you're going to be seeing us come forward probably within the next, I want to say, 30 to 60 days maybe, with the accessory dwelling units updates to our development title to make sure it's consistent with state standards. So at that time, we may have some preliminary floor plans. We may have some designs that you could take a look at that time. I'm hoping. It's a lot of work, but
recent legislation regarding ADUs, and so those have some much greater allowances for us to do by right. Additionally, which would not be limited by 750 square feet and some other ADU limitations, would be farm labor housing. So they wouldn't be limited to just the small pods. So they'll go ahead and weigh in on that now.
so there are two other, we just want to make sure. So there's going to be a farm worker housing manual, then there's going to be an accessory dwelling unit.
Exactly.
Both of those will be presented to your planning commission and move forward with that. So those are just some creative ideas, and it's good that we're getting this kind of feedback from you, and we're making sure that we're staying on track with what the constituents want, what the public wants, what stakeholders want, and ultimately what the Board of Supervisors, what they decide. We just want to make sure we follow their direction and get good guidance, making sure that the growth and opportunities are there for the future for San Joaquin County.
One other topic, we're talking about wineries, and
Yes.
Dan and I have sat through quite a few winery permit years, and my biggest concern with wineries, and I'm all for wineries, farming and big tourism. Neighbor that's been there for 60 years is right across the street. All of a sudden, a winery, but 12 to 20 nights a week, event center, parties and weddings and things like that. And I'd like to see up for more wineries, but consider that the people that are surrounding their projects. And I've seen a lot of neighbors come here and leave here. Their life changed.
I have great respect for all the work that went into the winery ordinance, and I think that some of this fine-tuning that you're mentioning, how to deal with the events, just similarly when the people in Lodi shared with us some of drafts they'd done on the mega wineries, they want us to look at that too. So we will be looking at both of those issues, but I think it's a light touch because I want to respect all of the work that had been gone in. We're not going to start over again, but say for the events, are the rules really tight enough? Is there appropriate notification? Those kinds of things. So I am writing that down, sir.
Another topic that go down on the cell towers, that comes to us quite often,
Right.
and
That's
how do you keep peace in a neighborhood when
there is a process that we have in mind that would have that consultation in it. The dilemma is that for certain kinds of co-location where the cell tower is attached, these decisions are to be ministerial. They're to be over the counter, and according to the federal government. So I have done a new draft that county staff has, and I think that how we involve the neighborhood notification and make sure that it fits in and that there aren't any problems is something you'll see in the draft.
Right.
We hope to be able to bring that before you relatively soon. But repeat, the federal government hasn't given us a lot of choice in some of those areas. And if we have the standards in place that they do allow us to put, I think that some of these neighborhood problems will be resolved.
Good. That's very important. Go ahead, Stan.
Diet, you and your firm have done an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Diagnosis report. Say that I read every page, no, but quite a few pages, yes. Outstanding.
Thank you.
You mentioned a couple items just at the end about trees, and it was just yesterday. I'm from Tracy. I was over at Antique, their big shopping center there, and they had trees all the way throughout it. It was beautiful. We don't have that in Tracy. They missed the scale on that one. We've done it. So much different to have that. Nice. And then you mentioned about one of the commissioners talking to John about, that was me, asked if a person were to put up a parking garage for their recreational vehicle that couldn't be higher than the house. Although some of those vehicles are quite large, and we got to be a very residential area. To have a two-story house than a one-story house. And we're going to look at that.
When you look at the other jurisdictions and their accessory heights, you're one of the most generous in the valley. And we will like to come back to you with share some of the numbers, but I certainly think that some of the allowances you have are very generous and do create the kind of problems you've described. So there could be a tightening up of that rule. Still allow the barn and the agricultural zones, of course. The barn has to be there. But the accessory structure, the garage, should really be in the 14 to 15 feet, not 18 to 35. So we've taken your suggestion to heart and already started a little research on that.
Any other comments? I have one more question for you. You talked about one of your main goals was to streamline the process. And I know this department can work and streamline the process, but after it leaves there, it's out of their hands. It's going to go to from 8 to 12 different agencies. Then it seems like the process comes to a crawl.
I think we'll be working with staff to see if we can reduce the need for outside contact for a lot of straightforward projects. And it may be that some of those referrals that you're now seeing that slow things down aren't necessary.
Agree.
And there can be much tighter time limits. So I've taken that to heart. I was surprised when I read about 50 of the staff reports and got a pen. And I was surprised at the amount of referrals for what are often very small development that should be allowed to get approval right at the counter. And that's the objective that David and others have told me that they want met.
If I can also add, part of the goal of the development title is not just to streamline, but to culturally change some of our processes as well, so that, for us, at the end of the day, the customer has to work through multiple agencies, as you mentioned. And for us, we're creating that communication loop and processes with the other departments much better, and they've been really working with us. So it's not just we're going to change the code and make it happen. We've got to change the code and our cultural processes with these other agencies as well.
Any other?
Yeah, just wanted to say I talked to the director and John today, and I really think we're off to a great start with this. I enjoyed. I waited till the last minute and read it today, but I was very excited by it, and I think there's possibly some very good things to come from it. So excited to be part of the process.
Thank you.
Comments, questions?
I would like to thank you for all you've done, and I'm excited about the project too. Glad to see that we're going to tighten some things up and make it a little bit easier for the applicant.
Thank you very much.
Comments? On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you. Having a little conversation with John. John told me this wasn't your first rodeo, and I can definitely see that. It's a great job, great presentation. We sure appreciate it.
Great. I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
And we want to thank John also for all your time and input.
Thank you, Chair Hamilton and Commissioners.
So Chair, with your permission, we did advertise both the public comment and the rest of the agenda items starting at 6 p.m. So if we could wait a few minutes before we start that.
We'll take a 10-minute recess.
Thank you.
Rob?
What are you doing?
city clerk.
meeting hour. Mr. Kwan, you want to go over the procedure again?
Thank you, Chair. David Kwong, your director again. So for those folks who are streaming our YouTube channel, we've provided a enhanced capability for public comment through Teams, both the computer user as well as through their audio conference line. And I'm going to go through some instructions for those folks who would like to log in that way or phone in that way. So thank you, Chair and Commission. Please click on the Join Microsoft Teams Meeting link at the bottom of the screen to join via computer or mobile device. Click on Join Now. Upon entrance to the meeting, you will be automatically muted. You will be asked to unmute yourself by clicking on the unmute sign when your agenda item is called. To join via phone audio conference center, the number is 1-209-645-4071 listed for the meeting. Enter the conference ID number 966-406-226, then press pound. Please clearly state your name when requested. Upon entrance to the meeting, you will be automatically muted. If you are not, please ensure you are muted. You will receive confirmation that you have connected to the meeting. The clerk will confirm participation information from all attendees in the Microsoft Teams meeting. The clerk will call upon attendees either by name, initials, or the last 3 digits of your phone number, and note the purpose of calling. Please confirm whether you intend to speak in support of an agendized item, in opposition to an agendized item, or are a silent participant of the meeting. When you hear the specific agenda item referenced by number on the agenda and/or application number, be prepared to speak when called upon. When the Planning Commission Chair calls for speakers in support of the project, the clerk will call on individuals one at a time. Please be patient as you are admitted to the speaker line. When the Planning Commission Chair calls for speakers opposed to the project, the clerk will call on individuals one at a time. Please be patient as you are admitted to the speaker line. When you hear the clerk call out the name or the last 3 digits of the caller's phone number, this is your opportunity to provide your public comment. The clerk will ask for those speaking in support first and then ask for those speaking against the project second. For Teams computer users or mobile device users, unmute your line via the speaker icon. For phone users, press *6 to unmute. You will have the standard 5 minutes to provide your comments. Once your 5 minutes have ended, you will be moved out of the speaker line and back to listening as a participant in the meeting unless you disconnect. Please mute your computer, mobile device, and or phone at this time. Participants who wish to speak on other items on the agenda or during other comment periods may stay on the meeting line and listen for a clerk's next prompt. Please mute your computer, mobile device, and or phone while you're waiting. So we've also made attempts with this meeting to provide this same information to the constituents that have asked for information regarding our agendized items, and we have also posted this information on our website as well for the constituents to be able to follow. With that, Chair and Commission, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Go back over this. Any action for requests for continuance or withdrawals? Seeing none. At this time, the public is welcome to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Comments to the Commission are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Sid Miller, and with me is William Hughes. We are the abatement coordinators for the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Department. We come to you tonight to ask that you consider revocation or modification of a permit at an address of 4219 East Waterloo Road. The APN there is 087-10009. This is the Days Inn, formerly the Stockton Inn. And we ask that that you take this action under 9-230.3, where the Planning Commission can modify or revoke a permit. Under 9-230.4, Section C, adverse impacts, health and safety to the community. Mr. Hughes is going to talk about the reasons why we're bringing this action to.
Thank you.
Good evening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of activity at this business.
Can you slide over to the mic a little bit?
Pardon?
Slide over to the
I'm
mic.
sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give you an overview of the activity since 2001. And back in 2001, it was still the Stockton Inn. And for that calendar year, we show 17 calls for service for the entire year. Between 2002 going all the way up to 2016, we show an average of 57 calls per year. The increase begins in 2016, where it went to 145. 2017 was 199. 2018 was 361. 2019 is 307. 2020 so far is 238 as of the 11th of August, and we show another 17 calls between then and yesterday. 2020 is a bad year. You can see the chart. The Sheriff's Office back in 2019 have met with the owner and his staff and kind of encouraged him, here's some things you can do to enhance your business, make it safe for the public, and maybe reduce some of the issues going on. They went out, they listened for a few minutes, they had a security guard for a short period of time, and then that all went away. 2020 was quite interesting in where we had a murder in one of the rooms. We had an officer-involved shooting there where the perpetrator expired. The calls for service are increasing. The issues there are anything from car break-ins to batteries, disturbing the peace. It's ongoing. I have a contact with the Days Inn in New Jersey. I'm speaking with them, and my message to them is to reconsider their franchise. My biggest fear is you have a unsuspecting family who sees Days Inn sign, says, yeah, that's a good place to stop off, and they find themselves in a situation that would not be good. And that could be anywhere from their car being broken into, then them being murdered. And I'm not exaggerating. Now, I've looked at the business. I've been working on this thing for about 2.5 years, looking at the problem, trying to problem solve. Anything we've done, I've met with the owner on 3 different occasions. Nothing has improved. In 2019, Environmental Health and the Fire Marshal went in and they inspected it. That inspection resulted in 2 of the units, not rooms, entire units being posted uninhabitable. We most recently, in the last week and a half, did a re-inspection, and 3 of the units were posted uninhabitable. And things that were in there where it shows lack of maintenance, it's filthy. There's motels, if you're familiar with them, that's on Waterloo Road that are 5-star compared to this. When you look at Yelp and you look on Clarion, you see approximately 97 comments made by people there. Not one of them were positive. You put in the Days Inn, and I believe there's 59. Again, nothing positive. And it's everything from bed bugs to smoke detectors not working. One unit that was posted, their boiler room had dust that was going through the whole unit, including the rooms. At another place that had an overflowing toilet with sewage that actually went out into the hallway and covered an area about, well, the width of the hallway about 15 feet. They had broken windows, and the whole place shows a lack of maintenance, not including the criminal activity. Now, I have studied this, worked with the owner, and I think the problem arises where he has a lack of security. His maintenance is not up to par, and that, in fact, that place was when it was Stockton Inn. I had my high school reunion there. Classy place to be. I just stayed at the Crest Motel on Wilson Way before I stayed there. He doesn't really screen his clientele, and I'm not really sure that his clientele are getting their bookings off the internet in as much as word of mouth. This is Joe Crook saying this is a safe place to go and do your business, and it's done. These books. Okay. This book here is the calls for service from January 1st, July 26th of 2020. That's the incidents. This is January 1st through December 18th of 2019. Now, what this represents is that Days Inn has the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office as their private security. Got to stop. And like I said, my biggest concern is the unsuspecting drive-by, here's a place to stay, and then they find themselves in something they shouldn't be. It's kind of like, remember the one up there in Tuolumne County where those tourists got in the hotel room and the maintenance guy ended up killing them? That's my fear here. This is nothing, the only thing staying there is a criminal element. Now, we have not yet been successful in arresting anybody for prostitution, but we know what's going on. I drove through the lot the other day, and I can see three of the ladies. They weren't selling food stamps. So there's a lot of this underhanded stuff going on. But the biggest thing is it's a burden not only to the sheriff's office, to the Murata Waterloo Fire Department, and Environmental Health. It's drawing resources that it shouldn't. Now, I can tell you this, that Mr. Patel, the owner, okay, I'm sure he's very much aware of what's going on, because I found documentation where back in 2012, he was actually part of an injunction from the district attorney's office on behalf of the California Inn, which is owned by his brother. So he knows what's going on. And the fact he's not willing to take our suggestions, and they're not demanding their suggestions that if you do this, things are going to improve. And he'll do it for the minute, and then it goes away. And if you drive over there, you'll see once you get past the desk, it's all open. They even have a lot of rooms where people actually go back there unannounced. They're trespassers, and they actually break into the rooms. So I think that, we tried everything we could. We tried to be humanistic and have these discussions with them and kind of help them along. And that hasn't worked, so I think it's time we take it to the next level and bring them in to tell them we're serious. This has got to end. Any
Did you
questions?
had very little input from the corporate or the franchise?
Okay, I spoke with the CEO of Whitham, and that's who runs this thing, and they have Days Inn. I spoke with him. He has put me in touch with their legal department, and I'm still waiting to hear back from them. And I don't know what the success will be, but I'm not going to stop there. My suggestion to them when I do put this out, because there is a liability on their part and it's strong, is that number one, they send somebody out unannounced and do their own inspection, and the other thing is pull the signs down. That'd be the answer. And that would actually cause him to panic, because he's going to lose some of that business coming through there. He gets a lot of trucks that comes through there. In fact, the truck driver, and I believe you can confirm this, made a complaint to code enforcement. He stayed there and he made a complaint about the filth, the drugs and prostitution going on there. And he actually left a number. Turns out he's from Texas. So I gave that to one of the sergeants to follow up on, to get a statement to find out exactly what he saw, and we can use that for part of the record. But that's the kind of stuff you're looking at. So, like I said, any consideration you can give to make this thing so it goes away, it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Item we can
Through the chair, essentially what I believe that Mr. Hughes is asking is that you go ahead and direct staff, and I'm actually going to pull it up right now. I apologize for this, is that essentially initiation of an action for revocation or modification of existing land use permit, which is what we're dealing with here, must be initiated by either the Planning Commission or the board. The way that you can do it in regards to or in response to a public comment would be to direct staff to go ahead and bring you a staff report discussing the grounds for revocation pursuant to the development title. Specifically, those are the action would be 9-230.3. You would be asking for a staff report by staff discussing the grounds for revocation under 9-230.4, which we'll use the binders. And then you would direct staff also to then agendize that staff report for a public hearing that's required under the chapter. And ultimately, the Planning Commission decision on that, after that public hearing on the revocation staff report, would be final unless the matter is appealed to the board. So you could direct staff. You would do that as a vote because it is an action by the Planning Commission, but it is allowed in response to a public comment.
question for staff. Can this be expedited and brought back to the next?
So Chair would probably prefer at least September 17th, because we are aware of the sheriff's concerns. As the sheriff mentioned, sheriff's representative mentioned, there's also other departments who want to consolidate a whole bunch of information. And because it's a revocation modification process, we want to make sure we dot all the I's and cross all T's. And so we would probably need 2 weeks to prepare the report so that we can bring it back in the next 2 weeks. So we're thinking September 17th.
No later?
That works.
I mean, I think we need to work with each other. Expedite this.
Yes.
Have a motion? Second it, to start the process through staff. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Maury?
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley? Yes. Commissioner Grunsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your time. Okay. Time consent item number 1. Items calendar for consent will be approved in one motion without a public hearing unless a member of the Planning Commission or the audience requests that the item be removed from the consent calendar and heard separately. On item number 1, special purpose plan number PA 2000092. Is there anyone would like to pull that? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Grunsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley?
Yes.
Commissioner Maury?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Move to action item number 2. Use permit number PA 1800316 of Ahmad Hassan. Okay. Ron?
Thank you, Chair Hamilton. We have Giuseppe Sanfilippo, who's going to, he's our associate planner. He was the project planner on this, and he will step up to the podium to present his item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. This project is a use permit application for a chicken farm for a maximum of 1,500 chickens and an animal processing facility on a 40.39 acre parcel The project proposes the construction of a 4,000 square foot agricultural building with 2,400 square feet utilized as an agricultural storage building and 1,600 square feet utilized for animal processing. The project also proposes the construction of two 800 square foot metal barns within a 6,000 square foot chicken enclosure. These metal barns will be used for sheltering chickens and collecting and storing manure. The applicant states they will have a variety of livestock such as cattle, sheep, and goats. These animals will be located on the remainder of the parcel and will graze outside of the chicken enclosure. A new land use permit is not required for these animals on the parcel of this size pursuant to Development Titles Table 9-605.2, which is uses in agricultural zones, and 9-1045.3, which is animal standards. The project is located on the south side of West Delta Avenue, 3,000 feet east of South MacArthur Drive in Tracy. The project site has a general plan designation of general agriculture and a zoning designation of general agriculture 40-acre minimum, or AG40. This aerial photo depicts the project site. The surrounding parcels are primarily agricultural with scattered residences. This is a copy of the site plan submitted by the applicant. On the site plan, you could see the area they designate as a project area. This is the raised pad on the project site. This project was originally scheduled for Planning Commission hearing on February 6, 2020. Before the meeting, the Community Development Department received comment letters from various property owners and agencies such as Reclamation District 2058 requesting additional time to review potential environmental impacts of the project. After a review of the comments, the Community Development Department requested that the Planning Commission continue the project to address the concerns raised by the letters. The continuance was granted, and the Community Development Department has been working diligently with the applicant to revise the project to address the concerns of the public and the agencies. Ultimately, the applicant reduced the maximum number of chickens proposed in half from 3,000 chickens to 1,500 chickens. The original project proposed to dispose of the manure by spreading it on the property to facilitate crop production. However, the project has been revised, and the applicant now proposes that all manure will be removed from the site a minimum of one time per month. As a condition of approval, a revised manure management plan is required to ensure the project operates consistently with the approval. Any changes to the proposed method of disposal of the manure will require a revisions of approved actions application, which will be subject to another noticed public hearing. The applicant has recently submitted a revised manure management plan to the Environmental Health Department, but that review has not been completed, but is required prior to the issuance of building permits. The animal processing operation remains unchanged from the original proposal. The project site is in the AE flood designation. Any new buildings constructed in the flood zone must be elevated a minimum of 22 feet above grade on an elevated pad. As a condition of approval, the Department of Public Works will require that all new construction or substantial improvement of any structure shall be elevated or flood-proofed in accordance with San Joaquin County development standards. Additionally, any septic tank system is also required to be constructed on an elevated pad. A soil suitability nitrate loading study dated September 6, 2019 was reviewed by Cuesta Engineering Corporation, and the results were determined to be adequate for an on-site wastewater disposal system. The applicant has requested to use asphalt grindings for the surfacing of the driveways and the maneuvering areas on the project site in lieu of asphalt concrete or Portland cement concrete. Development Title Section 9-1015.9 states that the requirements of the chapter may be modified by the director in instances where the requirements may be deemed excessive or insufficient. The director has reviewed the request and determined the asphalt grindings are appropriate for this project. The applicant's animal processing activities will be small in scope. An average of one animal per day will be processed. However, processing may not occur every day. The applicant has provided confirmation that Sisk Recycling, a bona fide tallow plant for disposal, has the capacity to accommodate the tallow generated from this animal processing operation. The proposed animal processing facility will be regulated by the California Department of Food and Agriculture, or CDFA. CDFA requires any building permitted for animal processing to have a concrete floor so that the ground and groundwater is not contaminated with animal waste. The animal processing is proposed in a 1,600 square foot portion of a 4,000 square foot building. Development Title Section 9-605.3 states that the applicant may expand the processing building by a maximum of 25% floor area, provided the provided expansion, in the opinion of the director, will not have an adverse effect on any adjacent property. If the expansion exceeds 25% floor area, then a new land use permit is required. In regards to the chicken ranch operation, a maximum of 35 chickens are permitted by right on parcels 3 acres or larger in size, and only 3 of those animals can be roosters. An approved discretionary application for animal raising small use type is required for projects that exceed this number of chickens. A manure management plan approved by the Environmental Health Department during the initial review of the project included 3,000 chickens in the analysis, and that manure generated would be used for crop production on the site. As stated previously, the applicant has reduced the maximum number of chickens from 3,000 to 1,500 and revised their plans for manure removal. As a condition of approval, a revised manure management plan reflecting the revisions will be required prior to issuance of any building permits. The manure management plan will include details that are consistent with the information contained in the initial study, specifically that the chicken manure will be raked and stored within a 3-sided roofed holding pen, which is one of the 800 square foot barns that is proposed for the project. Additionally, the applicant will be required to remove the manure from the site a minimum of 1 time per month by a reputable company. This requirement is included in the recommended conditions of approval. The applicant intends to use either Ralph Hayes and Sons Incorporated or Kiefer Landfill in Sacramento for their manure disposal. The applicant may also choose to dispose of manure by a different reputable company that will accept animal waste. The Community Development Department received 2 letters of support for the project from the Farm Bureau and 2 letters of support from the general public. These letters are included in Attachment B of the staff report. The Community Development Department also received letters of opposition from the City of Lathrop, Reclamation District 2058, and the developer Calfia LLC, and multiple letters from 5 members of the public. These letters are also included in Attachment B of the staff report. The concerns were raised regarding air quality, pest control, water quality, and aesthetics. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District responded in a letter dated February 6, 2020, that the project would not exceed any of the district's significance thresholds. The manure will be collected and disposed of a minimum of 1 time per month and will be stored in a 3-sided building with a roof to ensure that the manure is contained in one location. The renderings from the animal processing facility will be contained once per week and recycled by Sisk Recycling Company, which is an approved tallow company. All animal processing activities are conducted indoors, with renderings removed on a weekly basis. Any potential air quality impacts are considered less than significant. Additionally, processing animals and raising chickens are considered an agricultural operation. All properties within any zone in San Joaquin County are subject to the San Joaquin County Right to Farm Ordinance, which states that the San Joaquin County recognizes and supports the right to farm agricultural lands in a manner consistent with accepted customs, practices, and standards. The Right to Farm Ordinance states that residents of property on or near agricultural land should be prepared to accept the inconveniences or discomforts associated with agricultural operations or activities, and shall not consider them a nuisance. The project site is appropriately located on a property with agricultural zoning that is also surrounded by various agricultural uses. The applicant states he will use a pest control company. Will use eco-friendly insecticide, and bait stations will be used, and the animal feed will be stored in locked bulk containers on site to reduce the potential for rodents and other varmints. These details will be included in the revised manure management plan filed and enforced by the Environmental Health Department. With regards to water quality, all manure will be raked and stored on site within a covered three-sided building. This will alleviate the potential for manure to leak into the soil during periods of rainy weather. By removing the manure a minimum of one time per month, as required in the recommended conditions of approval, staff has determined that the potential for any type of water contamination to be less than significant. This will all be included in an approved manure management plan. With regards to aesthetics, the project is located approximately 800 to 900 feet south of Delta Avenue, and the nearest residence is located approximately 900 feet to the north of the project site. The nearest residence to the east and west is a minimum of 1,600 feet from the project site, and the nearest residence to the south is approximately 2,500 feet from the project site. The project is an agricultural project on an agriculturally zoned property and will consist of 3 agricultural buildings of standard height. All development will occur on an elevated pad in conformance with flood standards. Because there is a significant distance between the project and surrounding residences, the potential for aesthetic impacts is considered to be less than significant. This photo was taken along West Delta Road, looking south at the access driveway and the project site. In the top right corner of this picture, you can kind of see the raised pad. This photo here was taken along West Delta Road, depicting the raised pad. This picture depicts a field on the parcel south of the project area. This picture depicts the type of asphalt grindings used as the proposed surfacing material on the site. Thank you. This concludes staff's presentation.
I have a question on the whole project going on this raised pad.
So the development title requires that, so the flood zone is an AE flood zone, and any new construction or substantial improvement of existing structures has to be elevated a minimum of 22 feet in the zone. But the entire project will be on the elevated pad.
Go ahead, Stan.
Showed us the asphalt, broken up pieces of asphalt. There I am. Am I coming through? Showed us a picture of the asphalt.
That right there?
Is this what the chickens walk around on?
What's that?
Is this what the chickens walk around on?
So that's going to be the surfacing material for the driveways and the.
But not where the chickens are.
No, the chickens are going to.
Well, let me get this straight. The chickens are going to be in one of the 2 steel barns?
So there's a 6,000 square foot pen that's proposed, and then the 2 steel barns are going to be within that pen. So the chickens are going to roam freely, and any manure that's produced by the chickens is going to be scraped up and placed in the containment barns, and then once.
Where are those on the map, the containment barns?
I'm sorry, what was the question, sir?
Where are the containment barns?
So I'm going to go back to the site plan.
Please.
So here's the site plan here. If you look at, they have an exploded view of the project site, and it's going to be the, on the area of the right, there's going to be the 4,000 square foot ag building, which 1,600 square feet of that is going to be for animal processing. And then if you look to the left of that, it's going to depict 2 800 square foot barns.
And so one of the barns is going to hold the manure?
Oh, got a point of view. So the barns are area that's not shaded.
Okay, so there's two barns there, two 20 by 40 barns.
Yeah, they're in.
Right, and one of them's going to be used for manure,
So they're going to proposing to store the manure
one or two?
in one of the barns.
What's the other use for the second one?
It's going to be used for
Animal what?
animal shelter and general storage of supplies.
Okay. Is that for the other animals? Because I take it the chickens are going to be outside?
So the 6,000 square foot enclosure is specifically for the chickens.
Okay. Are you, go ahead, Stan.
You have two structures that are 20 by 40. One is for the manure. The other is for taking care of the animals. When you say taking care of the animals, you're talking about the chickens, aren't you?
Yes, yes, sir. Chickens.
How in the hell are they going to put 1,500 chickens in 20 by 40? Think about 20 and 40. What are they doing for the chickens?
They're going to be outside, correct?
Well, if that's supposed to be a place for them to be taken care of, you know.
Out of the rain?
Telling me.
So I believe it's for shelter from weather. The applicant might be able to.
Well, I realize for weather, but we're talking about.
That
No, before we started, he was going to have 3,000 chickens, trying to put in 20 by 40, 1,500 chickens. 'Cause I was around chickens when I was growing up.
So the applicant does not anticipate using the entire, like, because there's two of them, right? He does not.
For manure. One's for manure.
And he doesn't anticipate using that whole structure for manure. So and he'll be able to expand on that when he speaks, but there may also be room for other animals in that one as well.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Staff recommendation?
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Here, Stan.
Yeah. Got the touch for sure.
All right, thank you. I don't think so. Let's go ahead with staff recommendation.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration, which was attachment C of the staff report, and approve use permit number PA1800316 with the recommended findings for use permit, Williamson Act principles of compatibility, and conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Well, at this time, we'll open up a public comment. We will first let the applicant speak, anyone else in support, then we will roll over to any opposition that would like to call in and speak. This time, if the applicant would like to come forward. State your name and address, if you would, please.
Good evening. My name is Dan Shack from Shack Company. Pin 25 Central Avenue there in Tracy. Been representing the applicant, Mr. Hussein, on this project. You can tell by the staff report thickness that been thoroughly reviewed, almost every aspect. This really small project, and what this man has been through is significant. From the soil suitability to water test to state, manure management plan, all of these reports and stuff have been very thorough. We appreciate working with Joaquin County staff on this, and I have Mr. Hussein here to answer some of the specific questions that you had during the years. But I think there's evidence of a very thorough staff report and project, and I hope that go along with the recommendation of staff and so much.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ahmed Hussein, born and raised in Fiji Islands. Came here at age of 10, went to schools over here, didn't have financial background to go to college, even though I was a 4.0 GPA. Joined the military, walking down Mission Street in San Francisco, window sign says, "I want you." It was a picture of Uncle Sam. And every time I turned around, Uncle Sam was pointing at me. Joined the military for education. Ended up doing 30 years, 7 months, 1 day. The only reason I was forced retired due to medical conditions, I was hit with IED in Iraq. Spent 3 years in the hospital. After my retirement, I was told that Sergeant Major, at that time, I was the rank of Command Sergeant Major for the 1st Cavalry. At that time, at retirement, I was told, "Sergeant Major, you're not going to be able to do what you used to." I took my challenge, the Army challenge. No pain, no gain. My dream was to move back to Fiji and have a farm. But my children suggested, "Dad, you don't have all the medical staff in Fiji. Your doctors are all here. Your VA is here. Can't go. Dad, if you want to buy a farm here." Since 2013, I was looking for farm. I must have looked at hundreds of farms. Finally, out of the blue, came around 7300 Delta. 2017, I bought the farm with the intention of doing what I planned on doing. When I bought the farm, the neighbors asked me, "What do you plan on doing?" And I told them what my intentions were. All my neighbors knew about it. One of the farmers who's using part of my land for growing hay, Mike Meadows, he said, "Well, your purchase is going to take some time." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, in the meantime, can you let me farm your land?" So I said, "Okay, no problem." So for the last 3 years, 4 years, he's been farming. Mike Matthews kept on telling me, "Hussein, don't go through this route. Just do it. Let the county, let the people catch you. And once you catch you, pay the fine, then apply for the permit." I said, no, I don't do that. I'm a retired sergeant major. I want to make sure everything is done right. Eyes are dots, teeth are crossed. Worked. First plan, I drew it myself and submitted to the planning. After they looked at it, they made comments, and 3 bold letters says the plan needs to be done by a licensed engineer. That's when I contacted Dan Shack. Dan Shack's been working with me. I didn't know what nitrite soil management, I was lost in that. They said, "No, you need to hire another individual, another engineer to do all that stuff." We did all that stuff. The chicken ranch is not just slaughter every day. It's going to be our eggs. We want to sell organic. We don't want to even call our eggs organic. We want to call our eggs home-ganic because our home's going to be there. I guess when you use the term organic, you have to be licensed by USDA. So my family decided, no, we're going to call our eggs home-ganic. The slaughterhouse, I don't even have a home over here. I'm here on the weekends to work on my farm. I stay in a trailer, and I go back home to San Bruno. I do plan on building my home here. but we still have to maintain the home in San Bruno because my VA hospital, at least once a week, I'm going to the hospital one reason or another. And the clinic is in San Bruno. So that's where I go. So that's the reason I don't think be here doing this every day. It's going to be basically like a hobby weekend deal for slaughter of the animals. Again, like I said, the chicken eggs we're going to be using for our family, friends, and neighbors. One of the key things I'm doing is because of my religious purpose. I am a Islam. In Islamic, we have a festival where we sacrifice the animal. And there's a special procedures to do that. There is no Islamic farm out here where people of my family, friends can go and do their slaughter. And that's usually once a year. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. That way we have a facility where we can do it the properly way, the way it's supposed to be done, according to our at first, the neighbors, nobody made a comment. Nothing was said. I said, great, great. Oh, by the way, let me tell you about the celebration when we have. When we do sacrifice the animal, the meat is divided in 3 shares. So in other words, one section of the meat is for home use. The other section goes to friends and family. The third section goes to needy, giveaway as a charity. That's our practice, and that's what we keep on doing. So that's why we need a place, and we're not making the whole 4,000 square feet area as a slaughterhouse. Within that building, put a little office area for myself. So within, after the 2 walls, is a slaughter area. It's about 1,600 feet. There's an actual slaughter here, then we could have tables to process our meat so we can divide it. That's the reason I need that. Your question was regarding the chicken and the 24 by 40 barns. Yes, there's 2 barns there. Both of them is going to be useful. But in one barn, we're going to be storing the manure in 10 by 10 area within that one barn. But it's going to be covered, or there's going to be a wall where chickens don't get to the manure. Once we rake it out, we'll have the wheelbarrows rake it up, shovel it in, and bring it out through the door, dump it in here. That way it's a 3-sided covered wall with a roof on top as well. So both of the barns, it's going to be useful. There are some pictures. Giuseppe had mentioned that pictures there. I don't know when those pictures we're going to be able to show you, and I can explain you some of the things on these pictures I see.
And in your notes for the evening, so those are the pictures that Mr. Hussein submitted to us this afternoon.
Correct. Yeah, we have those.
Okay, yeah, because one of the neighbors that is complaining lives exactly 2 miles away from my property. I drove this morning from my driveway on Delta Road to her property on Delta Road. Exactly 2 miles. Lord behold, what's across our property? Jenkins' old chicken farm. I have met this lady with Mr. Jenkins when I asked Mr. Jenkins if I can pick some oranges from his yard, which he welcomed me. And I talked to Mr. Jenkins 2 weeks ago again. He has leased or sold that chicken area to Haley Farms. There's 5 chicken houses still being used. Each chicken house carries between 4,000 to 6,000 chickens in each. They are in small cages, small, barely they can move. Where my chickens could be free in the controlled fenced area, and they have a chicken house with open doors. They can go in and out in the evening. That's what I'm planning to do. Manure. I went around the other ranches, and people were concerned about manure or the smell. And these people are driving on these streets, and they can clearly see manures piled up all these different ranches. Nobody's bringing up any questions or concerns about them. I have no idea why they're bringing all sorts of concerns to me. The River Island Project. says I'm going to be big environmental impact to them. Well, they're north of me. They're not even on downwind. Totally. A totally separate direction. River Island project, as they stated on their documents, that they can have 10,000 homes, approximately 30,000 people. We all know in average home there is 2 cars per home. Well, now we got 20,000 vehicles that's going to be running down there. Am I going to be providing environment impact? Or River Island is going to be providing environment impact? Especially when they're going to make Paradise Road into a 4-lane road. Past the bridge, the old river bridge, they already paved it. They're waiting to do the paving, and it's coming. It's going to happen.
Let's stay focused on your project.
No, but what I'm saying, the reason I'm saying, because they made a concern.
That's fine. Let's just focus on your project. Well, that's why we're here tonight.
Right. Okay. So, no, I'm just saying this, sir, because they made the comment on my impact. That's why I want to bring that up. So that's I don't know what else to say. I'm a small-time guy. I'm doing this based on my pension, what I'm getting at. I don't have big money, and I like to be successful. I like to do this. Hope you guys see what I'm doing. You know, if a neighbor came down and said, Mr. Hussain, can I get a chicken from you? I'm not going to stop a neighbor saying no to him. You can buy a chicken from me. Neighbor comes up, Mr. Hussain, can I get some eggs? Which I already give away anyway nowadays. They can take it. So I'm not going to stop that. That's all I'm asking is, please, approve my project.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How many, you said you're going to have some cattle and some sheep and goats also on there. How many? And
At the maximum, originally we were thinking about 50 goats, 50 sheep. I think they have it on the paperwork. We reduced that to 50%. The cows, again, I'm not going to be, probably 5 to 6 cows.
how many employees were you going to have?
None.
So if you're in San Bruno, got 1,500 chickens to take care of, who's going to watch your chicken house?
Right now, I'm doing, because my daughter is going to be there, or my son's going to be there.
Okay, so family.
Yes, it's a family-run business. So right now, like I said, my daughters come here and help me out. My son comes here when he, pretty much most of the time, it's me, myself. But once we build the house, then at least the kids can come and they can help. Then I'll be here, and when I have my appointments, we'll rotate with my family members.
Mr. Maury?
Do these chickens lay eggs?
Yes, sir.
Who picks up all the eggs? You're in you're someplace, you know. Who's picking up the eggs every day?
Me.
Oh, you're there every day.
No, what I do is I leave late in the evening. I'll pick up the eggs, and we come back not the next day, the following day in the morning, and we pick up. So eggs we pick, you'd say every second day.
Said we. I thought you were the only person.
Oh, me and my kids.
See? So 1,500 chickens, they must lay a lot of eggs, huh?
Well, at 1,500, by the time we get to that point, because right now I only have about 30 chickens. And this is a project that's going to be a 3 to 5 year project. I'm not going to have 1,500 chickens right away.
Another question, the goats and the sheep, are they intermingled with the chickens? The chickens walk around them?
Right now, no.
Is that how it's going to be?
No. Goat's going to be separate area, chicken's going to be separate area.
I want to go.
We're going to be putting fence around it. It's going to be cyclone fence, so chickens don't get to the goat area. It's going to be at least 8 feet high fence.
I know you have two 20 by 40 structures there. Mm-hmm. One is for manure. You mentioned the chickens can go in there also.
Yes.
But I don't know how you're going to put 1,500 chickens in one of those structures.
No. Chickens will be in both of the structures.
Pardon?
Chickens will be in both of the structures.
Even in where the manure is?
Manure is one portion of that building, of probably 10 by 10 area. Because the county, the planning...
Well, once a week, 1,500 chickens, that's only 10 by 10 feet?
No, the manure.
I used to clean the chicken house for my mom and dad, but we only had about 25 chickens, but my God, 'cause they poop all over the place. I can't envision 15.
And the floor is going to be concrete. And the area that's going to be fenced around is going to be dirt area.
So the chickens are going to be outdoors, but then they're going to come inside and lay their eggs.
Right.
Lay them all over.
And when it rains, the chicken can get inside too. Come on.
And will there be structures for them to go in and lay their eggs, or
Right, there will be chicken boxes in steps along the ways.
how many? How many boxes?
All the chickens is not going to lay all the eggs. We anticipate maybe 300 to 500 eggs a day. And we're going to make 16 by 16 boxes all the way in steps, because right now we're playing and I'm trying to figure out how it's done. Like I said, I also visited my neighbor's farm there at the chicken farm and kind of got the idea, but I cannot afford to do the mechanicals that they got where they are congested.
Right. So you're going to take manure from 1,500 chickens and you're going to put it in a 10 by 10 storage.
Right, and again, those manure, like I said, because I have a trailer that hauls 7 yards. If the manure gets to be 5 yards within the 10 by 10 area that we're going to be putting the manure, if it gets within the 5 yards, the manure is going to be hauled off. It's not that it's going to be just once a month. Yes, whichever comes first, it says. Either manure gets either 5 yards or it gets be hauled off once a month, whichever comes first.
That amount of chickens.
And I have no
Your
problem.
manure bunker seems, to me, it seems awful small.
Right, and again, I will be regulated by CDFA because they're the ones who's going to be licensing me for the eggs and poultry permit.
You're going to sell the eggs commercially?
Not commercially. I don't know how we would say it's going to be commercially. It's going to be friends and family.
You're going to sell them?
Right.
Okay.
It's going to be friends and family and online, selling home organic eggs. But no, you're not going to be seeing our eggs at Safeway or Lucky's or Costco or stuff like that. You need to be a big guy to do.
But I can buy them online. I might be able to buy them online down the road.
You could buy it online. If you came to the farm, say, hey, you have some eggs? I'd like to buy some eggs. Why not?
Any other comments or questions, gentlemen? Thank you. Is there anyone online or in the audience you can favor this project?
Sorry. At this point, if it's okay with you, we'd like to go through the list of people who are online and find out which people are here to speak in support versus...
That's what we're after, the ones who speak in support of the project.
Okay, so...
Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you.
I think Dom will go ahead and run this portion if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So we have a number of attendees. I will be going first through those who have registered with a name, and then we'll be checking in with those who are registered either anonymously or through a phone number. So initially, and also too, I do need to remind you that if you are currently muted, when you hear your name or identification, please unmute yourself, else we will not hear you respond. Our first person, Diana Alves. If you are interested in speaking for or against the project, please state so. Diana? I will loop back before we commence this. We also have Michael Kith, if you are looking to speak for or against the project, or if you prefer to be just a silent participant. We have Steve Rao, if you are looking to speak for or against the project, or you wish to remain a silent participant.
I'd like to speak in opposition to the project.
Okay, I have noted that down, and we will come back to you when the opposition is ready for presentation. We have a user, last digits of the phone number 571. Are you looking to speak for, against the project, or are you looking to be a silent participant? Call-in user last...
I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead. It was for phone number ending in 571.
Is it 0571?
Yes.
Yes, this is, I would like to be in support of the project.
Okay, we will come back to you after we finish doing the roll check with the other attendees. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two anonymous users. Identification numbers I'm seeing are 6687. If either of those users are looking to speak for or in opposition of the project, or you're looking to maintain as a silent participant, please let us know. Okay, seeing response, we have one other. If there is a Dr. I apologize for mispronouncing the name, Umayam on the line.
Yes, in support of the project.
Okay, so I didn't have your phone number. I was not aware that 0571 is you. Thank you for clarifying that, sir. Right.
Yes.
Seeing no one else speaking in favor of the project currently, I will come back to you. So 0571, Dr. Umayan, you please would address the commission now.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Fernando Mayam. I currently work for the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Animal Health Food Safety Services branch for the state of California. Currently, I am a supervisor for the Northern Area District. I am the person, and we are the agency and branch that issues licenses for custom slaughter plants, poultry slaughter plants, and other operations that do meat and poultry in the state of California. With with Ahmed Hussein and his project, we support his proposal and his proposition. In the state of California, we have what we call custom slaughter plants and poultry slaughter plants. And with this project and intentions is basically try to provide for the local community, trying to keep the community fed. In light of the COVID-19, as what was mentioned, that his project in San Joaquin is trying to get that accomplished. Our branch, our division with meat and poultry, we definitely license them, and once this project is approved, then we enforce and definitely support the owner and operator in business to ensure that he's doing the right thing. Enforcing, food safety, making sure that animals being slaughtered are humanely handled and humanely slaughtered. And in addition to that, also on the other end is in terms of inedible material, which we regulate as well, and have regulate the rendering industry, which I believe and I heard that they had mentioned fifth cycling would be responsible for the inedibles that are produced by his processing of animals. CISC is, I believe, currently Sacramento Rendering Company. They're a big company, and he is, he would be required to make sure that sanitation, he keeps the place clean, and we have branch inspectors that routinely inspect them. In addition to that, with him as being owner of the business and having possibly in the future have employees, we train annually and we train them every aspect of having a slaughter plant. And that concludes my statement.
A question for you. How often do you inspect facilities like this?
Well, we inspect for custom slaughter operations. I just need you guys to understand that California is currently not under an Equal To program, which means that we don't have a USDA state, a USDA inspected facility. We don't have a state program as equal to the USDA. So routinely for our branch inspectors, we inspect these facilities at least 3 or 4 times a day. 3 or 4 times a month. And we have comprehensive risk-based inspection. And moving forward to proposing more programs that would, enhance food safety, like the HACCP program.
Other questions? All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Bye.
And just before we hand this back to the Commission, once again, anyone who was looking to speak in favor of the project, that is item number 2 on the agenda, PA-1800316 permit. We are requesting you speak now. It looks like we have no other online participants, and I have checked our email. I see no other comments being emailed in at this time.
Okay, so we can roll over to the opposition.
Okay. And as noted, I have here Steve Rao for the opposition. If you would like to present your information to the Commission, please.
Thank you. Stephen Rao, I'm the attorney for Ernie Costamagna and Gloria Costamagna, who own property. Some of the properties immediately adjacent to the site. They're both in the farming business, aren't necessarily opposed to the project. However, we believe that that this is an appropriate act on based on a mitigating declaration. I think the project calls for a draft environmental. Obviously, there's a lot involved, including, we heard animal sacrifice, and we're talking about one animal on average, but is there going to be one day where they sacrifice 30 or 60 or 90 or 100 animals on this facility? I just want to point out that to prove this based on a dedicated negative declaration, you have to find with the conditions of approval which have been recommended, there's no substantial evidence that there would be, even with the mitigating conditions, there would be a substantial economic effect. And also the mitigation as a result of the conditions would mitigate the environmental effects, right, where there's clearly the regulations say no significant effect on the environment. So we just think a higher level of environmental review is necessary. There's a lot of insects, flies, and associated with this. I noticed in the conditions of approval, I don't see limitation of one animal per day, even though that's referenced in the Commission's materials. There was also talk of a pest management program that's supposed to be part of the manure management proposal, but none of that's been done yet. So how do we know that's going to get in there and that it's going to be adequate? So my clients would just like to request that the Commission consider requiring a complete EIR on the project. Thank you.
At this time, if there are any other public participants who wish to speak in opposition to the project.
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you please identify yourself for the Commission?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is Diana Alves. I had problem unmuting earlier. I would like to speak in opposition for a few moments.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. I live directly east from this project. First of all, I believe Mr. Hussein is genuine, and I feel for him wanting to start a family business. However, if you noticed on the slides, you didn't see an east facing his property. That's because where he plans to build his stuff is close to his east property line, which is just off of Tom Payne Road, which is where I live. So I am downwind from this project. And because it has to be elevated, it also blocks my view of the gorgeous sunsets that I normally sit out on my front porch and watch in the evening. But my big concern is the flies, the insects, the smell. And I'm worried about the manure, and I don't believe that cleaning it or removing it once a month will be adequate. If you decide to approve this, then please make that at least weekly or figure out something better than once a month. That's just for the amount of animals and the amount of manure they're going to produce. I'm going to be smelling that 24/7. Would you want, after living somewhere for 66 years, want to have your residence smell like manure? That's all I got to say.
At this time, I'd like to ask if there are anyone else participating through the Microsoft Teams, either their mobile device or phone, and looking to speak in opposition to the project. To speak now. I'm seeing no other participants, and I've checked. We've received no emailed comments in either.
You'd like to come back for a rebuttal and speak of any of the opposition comment?
Let me first say, I kind of support what Diana Alves just said about cleaning the manure. I don't want you guys to think that once a month is when I'm cleaning. No, we are cleaning it weekly. It's just storing. And like I said, if we have within 5 yards that I could put in my trailer, we already have our front-end loader, so we can load it and move it out of there. If it takes 3 weeks to build 5 yards, okay, 3 weeks, it's going to be a closed area within the barn in one area. 10 by 10 area high, it's got plenty of room to hold more than 5 yards. My trailer, which holds 7 yards, it's 7 feet wide by 11 point something long, 2 foot high sides. So that's what I say. So yes, manure is going to be. And not only that, we're going to be building our home right there. We're going to be living there. So definitely we don't want to smell the chicken manure ourselves. And they have a plan there, kind of faded outline, shows that future home site, or where we're going to be putting the future home.
The structure for the manure is not open on one side, isn't it? The structure for the manure is open?
The structure is closed. It's going to be three-sided covered, but once you get inside, three-sided covered is the barn.
3 sides, but there's one side is open, is that correct?
Right. But the actual manure area where we're going to be holding it in 10 by 10, we'll keep that one closed. We'll put a door, swing doors on there. So that way, trying to eliminate rodents, anything coming in there.
Question for you. How many of these 1,500 chickens are going to be, how much of the time are they going to be spending outside?
During the daytime, pretty much all going to be outside.
Okay. And they'll come at night. You've got the outside to clean up and the inside to clean up.
Right. The outside.
So if you have heavy rain, you've got more product to move, correct? If you have heavy rain, you got manure. So what kind of surface on the outside are these chickens going to be on?
It's an elevated pad.
I understand that.
It's an elevated pad, and it's got sand on there.
Okay. So you're going to remove chicken manure from that sand?
Yes.
And from the barn?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to store it all in a 10 by 10 bunker?
Right. And if it's, once it reaches 5 yards, now if you guys want me to move it sooner, bi-weekly, no problem. I'm willing to do that.
You said it's going to be enclosed. All four sides are going to be enclosed. Did you say that? Maybe Mr. Shack could say yes or no, Dan. That it's going to be enclosed, all four sides?
The building, the barn is going to be enclosed. But see, because of the flood requirements, we have to put like a ventilation area, so that's where the chicken will be going in and out to keep the weather off them. Can you play too?
My name's Dan Shack again. Manure closed space.
Is that a closed space?
Enclosed.
Enclosed.
Yeah.
But there was a three-sided barn to this at one time.
What happens is there's been a complete manure management plan. It's been reviewed by state and the staff.
On our staff reported anything about it enclosed.
Sorry about that. Complete manure management plan that's been prepared, reviewed by the state and by the staff.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Thank you, gentlemen. Comments?
I know.
Okay, hold on a second, Stan. Mic's on, but it's not coming.
Okay now? I'm reading all the numbers here. Next to the people that live around that area. The north, it's 900 feet. For the east, it's 1,700 feet. South is 2,500 feet. Sounds like a big area. But when you cut it down, 1,700 feet away is only about a third of a mile. 2,500 feet away is a half a mile. There's a lot of great concerns about the smell of manure. We approved a chicken facility about, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago in Escalon. They had it in an enclosed building. I'm sure the people in the city of Escalon could tell you about it. I'd love to see Mr. Shack get available to build that building for you, and I'd be all for it. The way they had that set out was just absolutely beautiful. I'm not a chicken lover, but I'm kind of afraid that 1,500 chickens can't be outside of the rain and the wind and the cold and everything else. The numbers just don't get on with me at all.
Yeah, I'm very torn on it. I get the, be honest, I want it right next to me, and that's just the truth. But I also don't want to be a hypocrite and tell the consultants and John and those guys that the right to farm, how important it is, or how since COVID and even before that, being able to grow your own food or food for your neighbors is so important, and then be against it. So I think I have a lot of reservations about it, but I believe that he'll operate it in a way best to his ability, and I think the key is to start slow. I mean, he said he's not going to get 1,500 chickens right away. That would be too daunting. So I think we could show some trust, and that's it.
The application's for 1,500 chickens and X amount of cows and sheep and some goats. I think this application's too big, individual, even with a little bit of help. Is a commercial operation because you are going to be selling products, the eggs. I went out there last Monday and looked at the project. I parked in front of the neighbors. I've always felt that who was here first. And 90 feet from the project this is Al's house. Flies and the smell don't really have a distance barrier. Honor your efforts, but I think your project is way too big to manage.
I feel really torn also. I agree with James, I wouldn't want to live next door. But at the same time, the right to farm, past all of the, you up through all the hoops, at the qualifications.
Any other comments?
I'd like to see it come back to us somewhere along the line so we can help the gentleman out. No, but I can't with the numbers I've got working here. I can't do it.
Is there any options to scale it down and
Something?
Yes, please.
Okay. Principal Planner Jennifer Jolly, just for the record. I keep thinking of Kitty Walker, our former commissioner, who we all had a lot of respect for. And one of the things that she said to me before she left is, when you see us struggling on how to take action on a project, it would be really helpful for staff to offer some alternatives. So when we bring you a recommendation with conditions of approval, that's our professional recommendation. However, you are the decision makers, and I hear all of your concerns, and I thought maybe I could throw out some things that you might want to consider. Totally up to you guys, if you would like to.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we, I know we can have options, but aren't we voting on this project as is?
It does not always have to be as is. This is, again, staff's recommendation, but you have complete authority to condition a project how you see fit. So
Staff come to make a recommendation. Say if we would like to see it go as a smaller project, not 1,500. Why wouldn't staff come back? Say we'd like to see it. Gentlemen say, we don't think this might not fly. I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm understanding what you're saying. You're saying we should come back another time?
The recommendation is to approve this as is.
Our recommendation is that we have reviewed the project as proposed by the applicant, that we feel like we've addressed all the environmental concerns, and that it's appropriately conditioned for this scale of a project. If you disagree, though, there are options. What you can instruct staff to do, you can reduce the number of chickens, you can add additional manure removal requirements. And as a point of information, we're talking about whether or not there's enough protection for the chickens out in their area. This is what the applicant has proposed. However, as we do with dairy facilities, we allow them to come back without change to the discretionary application and put additional shade structures in if they would like to. And that is not something that requires modifying the land use permit because it's not increasing the number of chickens they're allowed to have. It's just offering additional shade. So I just wanted to throw that out if you wanted to consider how often to remove the manure. You could say if whether it hits 5 yards, if that sounds appropriate, or you could say once a week. It's at your discretion.
Or some options to scale up versus it's just the 1,500 and that's the chickens, and that's the numbers that kind of scare everyone because we're looking at the final product, the dream, the vision, instead of all the time to get there.
That's correct.
Both Principal Planner Jolly was saying, as well as Kitty Walker's suggestion, was that pursuant to the development title, you review a project and you can approve, deny, or modify what's proposed and add conditions. So that's certainly within your role and your discretionary approval under the development title.
Yes, the applicant if agreed upon by back with us. That sounds like.
So if you have, so for example, and we did this a number of years ago, I believe on the Chicken Ranch, it actually came sort of a similar project actually. What you could do is you could table it or continue it and direct it to be modified in certain ways and brought back for your review. But what you're doing is you're continuing the item, you're putting it on a table with direction to staff to then bring it back. Staff would work with the applicant during that period of time and bring you back a revised project that meets what you've directed them to do. Obviously, the applicant would have a choice on whether to come back at that second time, but staff would be directed to revise it pursuant to your direction.
There's got to be some way to, even the opposition didn't sound fully, against. They have concerns like we would if we were neighbors as well. There's some way we get it up here.
And Commission, you can ask the applicant. You can also just approve, as Zoe said, a modification of the proposal as well. So if you feel like it's too big.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel it's too big, and I'm worried about oversight, because who's going to drive out to Tracy, every week or every other week? County Health's not.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the people. They'll tell you right now they're not going to have the people. Not that he's not going to dispose of it, but we need to protect the neighbors. So 1,500 chickens is a lot of manure.
So I think your comments are good direction to not only staff, from what we're hearing as to some of your concerns, but it's also a good direction to the applicant, because from this hearing, one of the possibilities for you to take, or one of the paths for you to take, is to continue the hearing, bring it back with some additional protections that you're talking about, and perhaps a downsizing as well.
What additional protections do we have?
So if you're looking at additional manure cleaning that we can condition specifically on the use permit, that would be something. And we would review other issues about the enclosure part of it because of the smell. And we would have to talk to all the other departments again. So we would need some time to talk to the other departments. But that is just an option for you to look at. But these are things for you to consider.
This doesn't cost him any more financial if we table it. There's no more permit fees or anything of that nature, right? That's already done.
That is correct.
Pleasure of the board. Your comments, Dan?
Well, our chairperson is correct. The oversight. It's like when I'm looking at this and it says the amount of employees, 1. Well, 1 employee to pick up all the eggs, and every day going over the manure that's out there over hundreds and hundreds of feet, I don't see how it could be done. So the oversight, we want to take a look and see what's happening about this. The manure's got to be enclosed in an area, not left out, because that smell is going to be like. Listen, I've been on this commission for 34 years. I've done chicken farms all over the place. People complain about all the smell, and sure, there's nothing that smells like chicken manure, unless it's a tiger. But we want to see something that we can put our teeth into and help this guy out. But we've got to see. I want to see what's happening on this.
So, what's the pleasure of the board? Would you like to bring this back?
I think we could table it. I think we've provided a lot of direction for staff, the applicant and the staff, and maybe we can come up with a solution that's not monetary for the applicant. there's got to be a way to scale up, build trust with the neighbors. Look, there's certain neighbors that are going to be against anything no matter what. We know that. We're smart enough to realize that. But we have some experienced people up here on the commission as well, agriculture and such, that's saying, hey, the way it's laid out does not work. So there's an issue there. There's a real issue, and it's not just the not in my backyard argument. That's not what they're saying. They have actual concerns about the operations, the experience and the operations. And so there's absolutely some concern that you're biting off too more than you can chew right off the bat. And that would be the worst case scenario for a neighbor, is you have someone inexperienced who went full board right off the bat, and now you have your worst fears of your property values, the smell, what have you. But if we could build in some, like I said, some scaling up, there's ways to alleviate some of these things. I think there's been some good ideas and directions here. They provide some very good feedback. We can make this thing work. I mean, regardless of what the neighbors, how upset they get. They seemed lukewarm about it, actually, in my opinion. So if we can just table it, come up with some solutions together with the applicant as well, where it appeases the board's commission's concern. That makes sense.
I agree, that could be workable. My big concern is had some 107, 108 degree days, stuff so many chickens in a 20 barn during the day, metal barn.
And the concerns are very legitimate. I understand. You have the most experience in agriculture up here, and so the concerns are legitimate, but we should...
Big concern is oversight from agencies.
Mm-hmm.
We had something come up one time when we had too many chickens in a barn. They were too huddled together, and the activists were concerned about comforting for the chickens, and 1,500 chickens out in the rain all the time and everything. If it ever got to them, they'd go probably crazy on something like that.
Okay, we'd like to see this come back and go send it back to staff, and let's rework this, try to make it a workable arrangement.
The motion for that?
Yes.
Make a motion to, table it? Is that the... Okay.
And bring it back to...
Make a motion to table this item and come up with some solutions for the applicant.
Mr. Maury, second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Grunsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Maury?
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes. Motion passes 4. Thank you. Have any other business? Planning Commissioner comments? Director's report.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. I just want to report out a few items. The Board of Supervisors took 2 actions this past week on 2 actions that the Planning Commission previously took action on. One was the Ella Walker No 14.5 acre rezone from general agriculture to rural residential in Victor, and the legislative action by the board was to approve what the commission recommended, which was, again, general agriculture to rural residential. The board also took action on the appeal of the Burmese religious facility, the Kusula Kari religious facility, and that was it was an appeal by the Ippolito family and the Stevenson family. And in that particular case, the board did uphold the appeal and thereby denied the project on a 2-to-1 vote. And I also want to report out that we have an appeal to the Board of Supervisors that's been scheduled for October 20th for the action that the Planning Commission took in regard to the cellular facility that was recently heard. So that we will report back out to the Commission when that occurs in terms of the action. And then in regard to the meetings for September 3rd, we do have a special meeting as well as for September 17th. And
that's 6 p.m.?
They are at 6 p.m. And to this date, what the calendar shows for September 3rd will be 1, 2, 3, and these are in your notes for the evening as well. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 items, and they range from a master plan, specific plan amendment for Mountain House, for Farm Service headquarters facilities, bringing back to you the Dillon and Murphy Ashley Ranch 17 lot split. I believe we've worked these issues out. The third item will be the change of a historical resource issue that was continued to that date regarding the use of the barn, the lock barn. And then the fourth item is a specific plan amendment to amend the Wilcox Road specific plan to establish exact locations and width for a public right-of-way. And so that would be September 3rd, and I'm going to stop with that.
Are there questions or comments? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Did it help?